A ship has backups for its backups. Your radio officer is trained to do one thing in a disaster before anything else: send a distress signal. It's a reflex drilled into every seafarer. For that not to happen means it was all over in a flash. This wasn't a fire they could fight or a leak they could fix. This was something that wiped out everything in a matter of seconds. Imagine you are standing on the deck of a ship. Open sea all around, wind in your face, engines humming below your feet. No land in sight, just the vastness and you. You send a message home. You promise you'll call tomorrow. But sometimes, tomorrow never comes. The ocean is a vast treasure trove of secrets. In fact, it is very good at keeping secrets of the mighty ships that once ruled these seas. Ships the world proudly believed were unsinkable. But when they vanished, they left nothing behind. Only their names whispered in books and in the hearts of those who lost someone they can never replace. This is the story of one of those ships. But what was it that went wrong? A ship that served honorably well during the World War II. How can it just simply vanish? Steamship Marine Sulphur Queen had a long history and also somewhat interesting. And why not? It was the world's first ship to carry molten sulphur. It was a queen lost to the deep. A queen lost to the deep. Sounds like a ghost story, right? But for me, as a sailor today, this story is something more. It's a lesson, a hard lesson, whose price innocent lives have already paid. The safety rules that sailors follow every day, the equipment on modern ships that keeps us safe, so much of that exists because what happened to the 39 men on the Marine Sulphur Queen, and also because of many others who lost their lives at sea. We are, all of us who sail today, sailing in their wake. And that's why we have to tell their story, not as a mystery, but as a tribute, to remember the price they paid, which made the sea safer for everyone who came after. That's the journey I want to take you on. She was born in 1944 as the SO New Haven, a T2 tanker ship that served honorably well during the World War II. But in 1960, she was completely changed. Her soul was transformed to become the world's first ship to carry molten sulphur across the ocean. Her whole insides were torn out. You might be wondering, why turn an old wartime oil tanker into something as unusual as a molten sulphur ship? The answer lies in sulphur itself, a yellow element with a sharp smell found deep in the earth and strangely absolutely essential. Sulphur is used in everything: fertilizers, rubber, cement, chemicals, even explosives. By the 1950s, America was refining more oil than ever before. And one byproduct of that refining process? Massive amounts of sulphur. Factories and farms across the country needed it. The challenge? Getting it to them. Solid sulphur is tricky. It creates choking dust clouds. It sticks together in giant clumps. It's slow and dangerous to load. But molten sulphur, heated to over 280 degrees Fahrenheit, becomes a thick golden liquid. Easy to pump, easy to move, much safer to transport in bulk. And that's why, in 1960, a bold idea took shape. Texas Gulf Sulphur, one of the largest sulphur producers in the world, along with a company called Marine Sulphur Transport Corporation, bought a tired old tanker named SO New Haven. She had served in World War II, but now she would serve again in a very different role. For $1.65 million, they ripped out her insides and installed one enormous steel tank heated by steam that could carry over 15,000 tons of molten sulfur. It was nothing less than a floating furnace. All the bulkheads between her center tanks were removed. In their place, one giant, separate steel tank was put in. To fit this giant hot tank, the ship's own backbone, its center keel, was cut down from 7 feet 6 inches to 3 feet 4 inches throughout. The whole tank was attached to the ship at the middle so it could stretch and shrink with the heat. But that's where all the problems started. Crew members who worked on her said they constantly heard loud, sharp noises all the time. It was the sound of the tank being expanded and contracted. Or maybe it was the sound of a ship struggling with a job it was never built to do. Every sailor has to trust their ship. But when you read this official report by the United States Coast Guard, it mentions the constant fires, the patch-up jobs, delayed dry docks. I truly feel the crew of the Sulphur Queen was asked to trust a gamble. The kind of safety checks and meticulous planning that we count on today wasn't there at that time. They were sailing on the edge, pushing a ship to its absolute limit, and maybe they didn't even know how close they were to the breaking point. The ship wasn't just noisy. She had a troubled past. In the years before she disappeared, she was full of problems. A crack in one of the cargo tanks kept leaking molten sulfur down into the bottom of the ship. As per the reports published on her final trip, she was carrying up to 70 tons of this hardened sulfur in her belly. But the most alarming of all troubles was frequent fires on board. Starting in late 1962, fires in the insulation around the tank started happening more and more often, sometimes burning through an entire trip. These warnings were not just noticed by the crew, it was evident to all. The wife of one engineer saw the ship just before it left. What she said later to Time magazine is chilling.
I felt sorry for him. It looked like an old garbage can afloat.
In spite of all the troubles she had, beneath a pale morning sky, the steamship Marine Sulphur Queen cast off her lines and turned her bow towards the open gulf. Her hull groaned with weight, not just of cargo, but of warnings ignored and signs no one wanted to read. 39 men stood aboard. Some were seasoned, others young. A few scribbled last letters, one or two looked back towards the coast a little longer than usual. It was supposed to be a routine 5-day voyage she had completed many times before. Familiar waters, familiar faces, and yet this time felt different. This time was the last time anyone ever saw them. When you go to the sea, you carry two things with you: your luggage and your promises to the people back home. A promise to be safe, a promise to return. Out in the Gulf of Mexico, the Sulphur Queen sailed into a nightmare of a storm. The wind was loud and strong at 46 knots, and the waves rose to a massive 16 feet. The ship was caught in a deadly trap. The timing of the waves was almost perfectly matched to the ship's own rocking motion, pushing her further and further over with every hit. At 1:25 in the morning on February 4th, a crewman sent a final normal radio message. After that, nothing. But another sailor on a nearby ship saw something that would haunt him forever. A strange flash of light followed by a boiling yellow and green cloud on the horizon. No distress call was ever sent from the Marine Sulphur Queen. Something happened so fast and so completely that a 500-foot ship and 39 men disappeared in a moment. No distress call. To a sailor, these are the most terrifying words. A ship has backups for its backups. Your radio officer is trained to do one thing in a disaster before anything else: send a distress signal. It's a reflex drilled into every seafarer. For that not to happen means it was all over in a flash. This wasn't a fire they could fight or a leak they could fix. This was something that wiped out everything in a matter of seconds. Can you imagine being there? The wind is screaming. The ship is rolling hard. Your whole world is chaos. And then a flash. Maybe the lights go out. Maybe the floor just disappears from under you. No time to act. No time to even know what's happening. It's the worst possible nightmare at sea. To go from fighting for your life to nothing in the blink of an eye. The search was huge. Aircrafts from the Coast Guard, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force participated in the search. A total of 83 flights were conducted, accumulating 500 hours of flying time and searching 350,000 square miles. But it found no survivors and no ship. After 19 days of continuous search, the operation was called off when some life jackets stenciled with the ship's name and some other debris was found, proving that the vessel was no more. The official investigation was left with only theories. The Coast Guard could not say for sure what happened, and the official report called it an unsolved mystery. But the families of the 39 men wouldn't accept that. For 10 years, they fought a legal battle against the ship owners, sure that their men were sent to sea on a ship that was never safe to begin with. The report gives us theories: an explosion, a structural failure, maybe even bad weather. But it doesn't give us the truth. And maybe we'll never really know what happened in those final seconds. But what we do know is more than enough. The Sulphur Queen was old. She was overdue for dry dock. Her structure was fragile. Fires were common. And the systems meant to protect the crew? Ignored, dismissed, delayed. This ship wasn't just a ship that sank. It was a ship that was failed again and again before it even left the shore. It wasn't one spark or it wasn't one wave. It was a slow collapse, a chain of decisions made on land by people who chose delivery over dignity. And in the end, 39 men paid for it with their lives. Their story changed things. New rules were written. Ships are safer now because of them. As a sailor of this generation, the safety rules that protect me exist because of the price those men paid. We are all sailing in their wake, and the least we can do is remember their names and tell their story, so that no ship and no crew ever has to meet such a silent, lonely end again. If this story moved you, taught you something new, or simply made you pause, please like the video, share it with someone who should hear this, and subscribe to the Sailors Project. Until next time, let's keep questioning, keep exploring, and never let these stories sink into the silence.